From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello and happiest of holidays to you, everyone. I'm the original Santa Claus, also known as Jaime Hixson.
And I'm the Grinch of New York Jets time, known as Eric Rosen.
We're very, very happy that you could join us this evening, folks. We certainly hope that you have the happiest and healthiest and safest of holiday seasons. We want to give a special word of thanks to everyone that's been supporting the show, not just this year, but in the 10 years prior. We also want to give a special word of thanks to everyone who's been helping us out on the show, such as Eric, such as Rob, who's on the other side of the glass, such as Kenny Graham, such as Eileen Hanlon, our friends Hector Boza, Rosanna Robertson, our dear friend and faithful viewer Lynn, and so many of the other people that have been supporting the show. It's very greatly appreciated, and we hope that you have the most awesome of Christmases and New Year's, because we may never have anything like this ever again. You never know. Life can be very, very unpredictable. And one thing that I have learned the hard way about 2016, there is no guarantee you're going to see tomorrow. There's no guarantee that you're even going to see the next second the way things have been going this year. So I want everyone to cherish your family, your friends, and everything that you hold so near and dear to yourself and to your heart, because there is going to come a time when all that might be taken away in the blink of an eye. So, Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. God willing, we're going to hope to see you in 2017. And que Dios lo bendiga.
And to now, all my Jewish friends out there, Happy Hanukkah. Especially this coming Saturday, sundown, the first night, the 8 festive nights of the Hanukkah season. So, Shalom, L'chaim, and good tidings to all my Jewish people out there.
Well, folks, we have got some real business to discuss, specifically how we have 2 weeks left in the NFL season and maybe a quarter of the playoff puzzle. Actually, a third of the playoff puzzle has already been completed already, because 4 teams have already clinched, 2 from each conference.
That's right. The New England Patriots, due to their victory, 16-3 victory over Denver yesterday, clinched not only the AFC East for the 8th straight year, but a first-round bye. They could clinch home field advantage with a victory, I think, this coming Saturday against the Jets. As for the Raiders, for the first time since they were in the Super Bowl, they clinched a playoff spot. This is probably one of the greatest stories of the 2016 NFL season. The Oakland Raiders, Black and Silver Nation, they comprised the majority of the fans at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego yesterday.
Just to give you an idea how faithful Raider Nation is, Oakland and San Diego are only separated by about maybe 6 hours. But anybody who knows anything about Raider Nation is they're one of the most well-traveled fan bases, not just in football, but in all of sports. They're right up there with the Yankees, the Lakers, the Celtics, Le Canadien de Montreal,
Steelers.
The Steeler Nation, the Packers, and the Cowboys. All of those fan bases have really, really passionate groups of fans. The Raiders are no exception. Don't be surprised if you see them make a really respectable run in this year's playoffs.
The fact that they clinched the spot now doesn't mean that they clinched the division yet. They're still, they're now a game ahead of Kansas City with 2 games to go. Kansas City is playing Denver this week in a crucial matchup. So this is going to be really interesting these final 2 weeks in the AFC East, AFC West race. As for the Patriots right now, the fact 8 straight years. The last time they lost was 2008. And that was the year in which Tom Brady had an ACL tear in his left leg against Kansas City in New England. The Dolphins won that season. Ever since, the Dolphins have not made the playoffs, and the Patriots have won 8 straight division titles.
I think it's about time we started giving real credit where credit is due. not only are the Patriots the class of that division, I don't think there's anything that's going to be stopping them next year or the year after. Because Tom Brady, even though he's had a shortened season because of his suspension, is playing his best football in a long, long time. And he may not stop because he's made it loud and clear. He might want to play another 4 or 5 years. And he even said it best. Why would he stop now? Especially when he's still at the top of his game. 39 years of age, and he still looks like he did when he first made his way onto the scene in 2001.
With the absence of the first 4 games because of the Deflategate suspension, he's only thrown 2 picks and over 20 touchdown passes already on the season. He's got an array of weapons to throw to. You got Malcolm Mitchell, a good rookie receiver. You have Julian Edelman, who can get on crossing routes or end rounds. You got LeGarrette Blount, who has 15 rushing touchdowns, which just broke the franchise record. And, and
to think, he's been doing this with Rob Gronkowski, his best player on offense, in and out of the lineup because of his nagging medical history. And again, he's going to be out for the majority of the time. Brady is still looking the same. He looks spectacular out there. And what about Bill Belichick, the former HC of the NYJ?
Oh, please don't bring that up.
From 16 years ago.
The cocktail napkin heard around the world?
Yep. The guy continues to show how much of a genius he is offensively. Right now, except for the Raiders, the Patriots could be the team to beat in that AFC. And I would be salivating on a possible Raiders versus Patriots matchup, a rematch of the Tuck Rule game from all those years ago. That's how the Patriots started their run in the first place, is because of the Tuck Rule game.
But what about the Raiders this year? You look at the last years. Reggie McKenzie has done a genius job of selecting certain players in the draft, like Khalil Mack. Mm-hmm. That was a big pickup there.
Khalil Mack, Latavius Murray,
Derek Carr.
The countless. Oh, and also
Amari Cooper,
drafting him out of Alabama. And what about that genius free agent pickup of Michael Crabtree?
Yeah, a guy who basically played across the bay with the 49ers. His career was dwindling, and now look what he's done this season alone. Some of the touchdown passes, including yesterday, which almost was overturned, that was critical in their victory against San Diego yesterday. I'm just saying, and on defense too, getting Kent Norton Jr. from Seattle to be your defensive coordinator, that was another genius move on his part as well. And Jack Del Rio, the job he's done this year. It's not like the Jack Del Rio that I've seen in Jackson, who finds ways to screw things up. This is a completely different guy. And he's also made some ballsy moves. If you look at week 1 against New Orleans, which started everything, they were down 34-33. And what instead of going for the easy extra point inside New Orleans, Superdome, he goes for the 2-point conversion to Michael Crabtree. They win 35-34. So that's what I'm saying. All these gutsy maneuvers that they've had, these come from behind victories, the defensive play that we've seen from him, and even Reggie Nelson.
Yeah.
All these things have come together. This is why the Raiders are where they are right now, and they have a chance, like you said earlier, to make a significant run. But on the NFC side of things, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Talk about another story right there. This was a team who last year was a complete, utter joke and failure. This year, the offensive line's back to what they were 2 years ago. You have a rookie in Dak Prescott, who's really who doesn't matter what moment it is, nothing is ever too big for this guy.
I think it's safe to say we can put to rest all of those discussions of benching him and bringing Tony Romo back off the bench to be the starter. All it took was one shining moment for Dak Prescott to make his way back onto the scene, and he did that. Although last night his defense was able to pick up the slack for him as well, because they did a really good job shutting down Jameis Winston last night.
Especially in the they did a great job in the second half against him. That was, it's not how you end, it's not how you begin, it's how you end, how you finish. And that's what Dallas did. They finished very well last night.
And all Dallas needs is one more victory to win the East.
And another Salvation Army kettle to go in.
Yeah, as the fans that were watching last night's game saw, Mr. Elliott wound up basically dumping himself into the Salvation Army kettle where they take all of their donations, and had himself a grand old time.
I thought it was, honestly, I actually liked it. It was one of the funniest moments of the game. After he scores a 2-yard run that was easy for him, considering he has an offensive line that can part the Red Seas, and he's a bulldozing running back. I like that he has that fun side about him. But, of course, the NFL, a.k.a. the No Fun League, gets a penalty for doing that. And even his coach admonished him on the sidelines for doing it.
Yeah.
At least he didn't give the finger to people, and he wasn't being... I didn't think he was being disrespectful. I actually enjoyed it. It was one of the funniest moments of the game. There are players who have done things yesterday, like, for instance, in the Cincinnati Pittsburgh game. Yep. When Cincinnati was leading and all that, after a touchdown, I believe, one of the Cincinnati players takes a terrible towel from one of the Pittsburgh fans that traveled, decides to stomp on it and throw it on the ground.
Yeah. And that only infuriated the fan base that was in Cincinnati and the Steeler players even more. That gave him a lot of ammunition.
That is one thing you should never, ever, I don't care what team you are, to me that is insulting.
Yeah.
If you know the story.
You do not make Steeler Nation mad.
Yeah, the story behind that terrible towel, the guy who created it, part of the proceeds goes to a school for special needs kids in Allegheny Valley.
Yeah.
And that really honestly pissed me off because my heart goes out for people with special needs.
Yeah, and
to see somebody do that as a player, I find it incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah, and my fiance has 2 children that have special needs, including an 11-year-old daughter who really is going through a difficult time. She's not going to admit as much, but still, there comes a time when you do not try to awaken a sleeping giant, and that's exactly what the Bengals did. By the way, after 5 years, the Bengals' playoff chances are officially done, and I think you could be seeing one Bengals head coach, Marvin Lewis, be done after 14 years in Cincinnati as well.
Let's, go through some of the games, including the Cleveland Browns. They're 0-14 due to a 33-13 shellacking from the Bills. Man, they're just 2 losses away from infamy, or joining infamy.
Well, that's basically window dressing for the Bills because it only makes them a 500 team, but this only adds to the utter embarrassment and humiliation that the Cleveland fans have had to go through right now. I'll say this, though. At least the Cavaliers are still playing.
Believe me, you know what? They've lost. Do you know how many games they've lost straight, if you include this season? 17 straight. It's been a calendar year since they won their last game. They are tied with the St. Louis Rams and the Oilers from 82 to 83 for the 6th longest skid in NFL history.
Wow.
That's embarrassing in and of itself right there. They haven't won since Johnny Manziel was on the team. That also is embarrassing.
They haven't won since Jim Brown was their starting running back, and that was 52 years ago.
When they won a Super Bowl. This
was actually
NFL
before the Super Bowl era.
It's just, talk about embarrassing here about the 49ers. The 1-13ers now, losing to the Falcons 41-13. Devonta Freeman had fun on them. 3 touchdowns on the day.
You think Chip Kelly wants to get a mulligan on whether he had a decision make regarding this job or not? I think knowing him, he probably wanted to go back to college.
And the Falcons scoring 4 on their first 5 possessions alone. That's also more embarrassment. And to add, and Chip Kelly's seat could be warming up.
Yeah, and he's only had 1 year there. 3
coaches they've gone through in as many years. That's also another embarrassment to take into account. And,
wow.
And how about this? The Jacksonville Jaguars had a 28 lead going in the second half, and guess what? They do what they do best. They blew the lead badly, and after Brock Osweiler's embarrassing second quarter in which he threw yet another pick, he gets benched for Tom Savage. They end up winning 21-20 on the game-winning touchdown by Lamar Miller. And now Jacksonville just became the second team to fire their head coach.
Yep, Gus Bradley is gone, and now they've gone with, of all people, Doug Maroney, who used to coach the Bills for a couple of years. And, of course, New York fans know him as a Bronx kid who played college ball at Syracuse, coached Syracuse for a little bit before he decided to take his leap into the big time. Now he's got himself a job again. It's not going to be for long, though.
Oh.
And as for the Texans, nice to see them make a ballsy move like bench Brock Osweiler for Tom Savage. Just to give you an idea about Tom Savage, he's a Pennsylvania kid, grew up not too far from Pittsburgh, played high school ball in Pittsburgh. He actually went to 3 different colleges after high school. He played 18 games in 2 years at Rutgers, then went to Arizona, then left Arizona before even playing a game because they did a coaching change there, and then returned to his home digs of Western Pennsylvania to play 1 year at the University of Pittsburgh, got drafted by the Texans, has played 3 games in as many years with the Texans, and what happens after this? After engineering a game-winning drive, he is going to be the starting quarterback next weekend.
Yeah, this coming, I believe it's a Saturday night, Christmas Eve night game against Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
So this, and the fact that Houston is still in a first-place tie with the Tennessee Titans for the AFC South right now, if things go accordingly, Week 17, their matchup could be for the division.
Quite possibly.
That would make for a very amazing, possible Sunday night NFL game for that Week 17. How about the Packers yesterday? The game is tied 27-0. They get the ball back at their own 27-yard line. They go third down at the 26. And what does Aaron Rodgers do? Even with a hamstring issue and ankle issues, he throws a bomb down the middle of the field to Jordy Nelson.
60 yards.
60-yard bomb. They pretty much, he gets to the 32-yard line for Chicago. They spike the ball with 3 seconds left. Mason Crosby comes up, gets the game-winning field goal with time expiring. The Packers beat the Bears 30-27, one of the coldest games in Chicago history.
5 simple words. Aaron Rodgers is a boss. That's all you need to know.
And Chicago, the hits keep on coming.
Yeah, the hits to their pride and their ego.
And how about this? The highest-scoring game of the NFL year, Saints-Cardinals.
Yep.
89 combined points.
Nice to see that certain things still don't change. The Saints still don't play any defense, but at least this time they were able to win a shootout.
And this time, Drew Brees actually got a touchdown.
Yep.
If you look at the previous 2 games before yesterday, he had 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
Yep.
Yesterday, he had almost as many touchdowns. He was too shy of those interceptions. He had 4 touchdowns, no picks. Almost 400 yards in the game.
Yep, and with 2 games left, the only thing the Saints have to play for is maybe breaking even to end the season.
They're still mathematically in it. The Cardinals, however, a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year, is now eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, and there are officially rumors regarding Carson Palmer. Whether he's going to be back with the Cardinals next year, whether he's even going to play another NFL game again next year.
One of the bright spots I have to say is David Johnson. His 14th straight game, 100 total yards, an NFL record. This guy is off the charts when it comes to running the ball and catching the ball. And on Larry Fitzgerald, the fact that he's still playing, Father Time has nothing on him. And Carson Palmer almost had 300 yards in the game.
Yeah.
There were some critical mistakes and fumbles. At the end, how about the fumble recovery for 53 yards, though, by Calais Campbell? Seeing that guy run, imagine a 6'8" lineman running like him. That guy, I was thinking he was going to be out of breath.
Yeah.
But you got to give it up to him. But anyway, how about this game right here? Eagles-Ravens, all right? So the Eagles are down 27-20. They get a big touchdown play. And guess what they decide to do? Doug Peterson's like, you know what? After the 4-yard touchdown run from Wentz, why don't I just go for the 2-point conversion and not try to do the smart thing by, going for the extra point, tying the game, forcing overtime? So instead he goes for the 2-point conversion. It backfires on him, and they lose 27-26.
Yeah. There's a time to go for a 2-point conversion, and then there's a time to tie and send it to overtime. I mean, you appreciate the Eagles wanting to do something gutsy, but something tells me yesterday was not that time. And because of that mistake, they're now done for the season, and the Eagles' deep, deep slump continues. They have now lost 9 of their last 11 games.
And 5 straight, which is crazy to say the least. This was a team that started 3-0. But if you look at what happened to Lane Johnson, remember, he was suspended originally for 10 games. He decided to appeal his suspension instead of take it at the beginning of the season. And guess what? His suspension was upheld, and he won't even be eligible, I think, till this Thursday night when they play the Giants.
Yeah.
And that should be an interesting Thursday night game in Philadelphia. How about the Colts? They raced out to a 27-0 victory. They end up winning 34-6, defeating the Vikings. And this time, Robert Turbin, 2 touchdown passes. How about that easy 50-yard play that Luck had to Philip Dorsett?
Yeah.
How ridiculous that was. Like, where the hell is the defense, Minnesota?
Speaking of defense, how about the defense that the Colts played in yesterday's game? A team whose defense has not even gotten out of their own way, much less gotten into the opponent's way, finally with a solid defensive performance against the Vikings team that clearly was lacking yesterday. How did Adrian Peterson do? Because he was supposed to declare himself ready for yesterday's game.
22 rushing yards in his first game and a lost fumble. But then again, you're asking a guy.
No surprise.
You know, he was injured week 2. He had a leg injury. He was not going to be the same Adrian Peterson that we're used to. I think his age is honestly catching up to him.
Yeah.
Now, you look at the AFC West match we mentioned earlier, the fact that Raider Nation came in droves. Well, they saw Janikowski with the game-winning 44-yard field goal with about 2:40 left, and the Raiders clinched their first playoff berth since that infamous, terrible Super Bowl, 48-21. And by the way, where was that Super Bowl played? In Qualcomm Stadium.
In San Diego, the last time the Raiders were in the Super Bowl. Although this year's Super Bowl is going to be in Houston. But you know what? Great to see the Raiders, a proud franchise with such rich history, finally make it back into the playoff scene after 13 years away.
And Reggie Nelson sealing the game with the game-ending interception. And this has been the bane of San Diego's season. They've had these fourth-quarter leads, whether it's in the beginning or with 5 minutes to go. They find a way to screw it up somehow, either turning the ball over, making terrible plays at the end that make no sense. You know, the fact that, it's unfortunate Melvin Gordon's not there for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Who was actually having a better season this year than he did last year. Because this year he actually scored a touchdown. And he didn't lose a lot of fumbles. But this Chargers team altogether, now I just heard the city of San Diego is not approving the plan for a new stadium.
And this is only opening the door for the Chargers to move up the freeway to Los Angeles, possibly, for 2017.
I think it's going to happen. And right now we're hearing, of course, a lot of talk of the Raiders going to Vegas.
That talk is getting much stronger because apparently they approved funding for an all-purpose stadium in Vegas. So could we be calling the Raiders the Las Vegas Raiders somewhere down the road? Doesn't roll off the tongue well at all, but at this rate, I would say yes. I think they're going to be making the move.
And I think, honestly, Raider fans will travel. They don't care where it is. They'll travel to San Diego. They'll travel to Vegas. They'll travel anywhere where the Raiders play because that's how loyal their fans are.
But what about the fans that are unable to make it from Oakland to Vegas? That's a long drive getting from Northern California to Nevada.
DirecTV.
Not only that, but they've got some really hardcore, blue-collar, working-class fans in the Oakland area, a city that's gone through a lot of tough times. Who's to say that they're not going to be joining the party in Vegas?
Well, unless the city of Oakland comes up with a way to build a new stadium, which I doubt they ever will, then there's honestly, I don't mean to sound heartless, but either go to your local bar, get DirecTV, go to a friend's house, travel to Vegas. I know it sounds kind of heartless coming from me, but those are your only options. Or hope that the city council approves a plan for a new billion-dollar stadium, because that's unfortunately what you need in this day and age for stadiums in the NFL. You have to spend over $1 billion.
Amazing. The Athletics were able to sign a lease extension with the O.CO Coliseum. Yet the Raiders have basically been in a long feud with the city of Oakland for what seems like 2 decades now over trying to get a new stadium.
This has Mark Davis written all over
big
it.
time.
Now, how about Steelers-Bengals? Man, as I mentioned, that stupid, terrible towel move, during the game, that was Jeremy Hill after he got the rushing touchdown. When they were leading the game 26, he grabs a terrible towel by one of the fans, all right? Mm-hmm. Throws it on the ground, stomps on it. Probably wanted to wipe his butt with it, but of course he didn't want to do that on national camera. And that's, like I said, literally insulting. So what did Pittsburgh respond with? Chris Boswell's record 6 field goals and a touchdown pass to Antonio Brown.
Chris Boswell.
Eli Rogers. Sorry.
Chris Boswell was the unsung hero for the Steelers because he basically represented 75% of their scoring. It was a good job defensively by the Bengals to hold them to all those field goals, but quite frankly, Chris Boswell was the unsung hero in this game. And because of him, the Steelers season has been extended for 2 more regular season games. And right now, I think they might have the inside track at winning the North.
And they really have a chance. Right now the Steelers are up a game. They play Christmas Day, 4:30 against Baltimore, which honestly I think is for the AFC North. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh wins. They win the division. If Baltimore wins, they create a tie going to Week 17 where they have to play their respective opponents. So it'll probably be Cincinnati, not versus Cleveland, but versus either Baltimore. No, not versus Baltimore probably, and Cleveland versus Pittsburgh, Week 17. So, honestly, Cleveland's not going to do anything to help Baltimore.
No, not even.
So
Cleveland is absolutely horrendous.
So, honestly, I think Pittsburgh is going to win this division. At the end of the day, and Baltimore will be on the outside looking in. Now, for the Patriots, how about LeGarrette Blount powering in from the 1-yard line on the rushing touchdown?
Yeah.
His 15th on the year, a record, by the way, a single-season record, which is unbelievable in and of itself, and they win 16-13. Even Logan Ryan made a great pick off of Trevor Siemian during the game. 16-3, and no touchdowns, actually, for Brady in this game.
And just to give you an idea of the next weekend, not this weekend coming up, but the weekend after, Ravens and Steelers in what should be, that game should have been on prime time, to be quite honest with you. They're going to make Broncos and Chiefs the game to look at for
Christmas night.
But to be quite honest with you, Ravens and Steelers, a game that basically is going to be for all the marbles, is going to be the 4:30 game. And then after that, Ravens have the Bengals, and the Steelers do host the Browns.
Yeah. How about this suck-up right here? Ryan suck-up, that is, the place kicker for the Tennessee Titans, helps defeat his old team, the Kansas City Chiefs, with a game-winning 53-yard expiration field goal, and the Titans win their second straight 19-17 in a virtual first-place tie with the Texans for the AFC South. But because of the fact that the Texans beat the Titans earlier this year, the Texans own the tiebreaker.
It was not necessarily a well-played game by the Titans, but great defensive job by them. This right now is their biggest win of the year.
Dick LeBeau is their coordinator, which is really saying, how about that stupid move by the Chiefs on 4th and 1 at the goal line early in the game to go for it instead of going for the field goal, which would have actually won them the game. And they go for it and they get stuffed at the line of scrimmage. And they turn the ball over on downs.
Yeah.
Plays like that and Andy Reid calling a timeout, giving Suckup another chance to get the field goal, too, when he would have missed it.
Yeah.
Bunch of plays right there that the Chiefs, but Tyreek Hill, how awesome is this guy?
Very awesome.
Like, a 66-yarder, end around. He goes to the left side. He does a little juke and jive to the left and right, goes down the left sideline. Boom! 6 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. He's just... I'm sorry, I can't contain my excitement for this guy.
It's guys like him that make a difference for a contending team, and that's exactly what he's doing.
And how cold this game was? 1 degree of kickoff for a Hawaiian-born player like Marcus Mariota, right, who comes from nothing but great weather, sunny blue skies, having to play in 1 degree weather. He should be used to that because he played 3 years at the University of Oregon, which
whose weather is not necessarily so great.
But compared to the Midwest and all that, this is like insane type weather right here that he had to deal with. But you know what? He was able to get through it. Threw a nice pass to Rashard Matthews. Even on that drive, they won 19-17. Now, they got a game coming up this week against Jacksonville. If they can't even beat Jacksonville,
it's easy pickings right there.
That's like taking candy from a baby. How about the Buccaneers-Cowboys? What a primetime matchup this was. NBC did a good job. And
they really have caught lightning in the bottle with the last 4 weeks with their flex games. First off, well-played game by both teams. Second, we can put to rest all of those Dak Prescott to the bench in favor of Tony Romo talks. Third, as gutsy a player as Jameis Winston is, he still has a bad habit of trying to do too much. And that's exactly what he did yesterday.
Oh, yes. They were up 2017 after the Cameron Brate touchdown play. And what happens, of course? 2 field goals by Bailey, of course, to tie the game and win the game. They end up with a field goal, and Ezekiel Elliott making some rushing touchdowns. This was just an unbelievable performance by the Cowboys to get back in this game and win it 26-20.
Now the Cowboys have put themselves within 1 victory of an Eastern Division title, which would really cap off an outstanding season for them. But let's see what this team can do in the pressure cooker of a playoff game. Because for Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, they're going to be making their NFL playoff debuts in a couple of weeks. And Dez Bryant, who was victimized by the touchdown catch that was taken away in the Green Bay game a couple of years ago, you think he's going to want some redemption? I would say so.
This is redemption for this entire team, for Jason Garrett, for all the years of playoff ineptitude. This is the year that the Cowboys could make a run. That's how really good this team is. The offensive line has done its job with Tyron Smith, and you got Zach Martin, and you got all these players on the O-line that have done their job well, have parted the Red Seas for Zeke Elliott to keep feeding him more every time you see him do that, which I like. One of my favorite things about this guy, he had 159 yards rushing, a career high from last night.
And this has been a really happy time for the Cowboys' boss, Mr. Jones, because not only did his team make the playoffs, but his grandson, who's a student at Highland Park High School in the Dallas area, led his school to a state championship in AT&T Stadium.
Oh, future Cowboys owner, huh?
And just to give you an idea, Jerry Jones's grandson, who I think is named Steve Jones, attended the same high school as Matthew Stafford.
Who this year, despite losing yesterday's game against the Giants, you got to give Stafford this much. He engineered 8 fourth-quarter game-winning drives, which is an NFL record, and he's gotten his team out of several situations, but not yesterday when they...
Speaking of Giants and Lions, 2 games, 13 points given up by the Giants defense. They have done a complete turnaround from the previous 12 games. They have now given up 13 points in the last 2 games, all thanks to guys like Janoris Jenkins, who, by the way, was hurt last night.
Let's hope it's not that long.
Let's hope it's not totally serious. Landon Collins, who's come out of nowhere. The ex-Jet, Damon Harrison.
Yay.
And how about the job that their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, has done, pushing all the right buttons with his guys yesterday.
This is Spags circa 2007 we're seeing here.
As great as a win as it was yesterday, as great the last 2 weeks have been for the Giants, they've also scored a whopping 27 points in the last 2 games. They've got to start lighting up the scoreboard, if for lack of a better word, because for one, they still don't have a running game, even though they did get just over 100 yards combined yesterday. Number 2...
The left side needs to maybe be solidified. On top of that, the running game needs to be established too. It can't just be Odell Beckham, making those. I want to see more from the rest of the offense that they have. Which we've seen Sterling Shepard too make an occasional play, but why is Victor Cruz not being used?
I'm telling you right now, this is a bad sign for his future as a Giant. He only caught one pass yesterday. I'm trying to get his numbers for the season, but why they're not giving Victor Cruz more looks when Odell Beckham has gotten double and triple teamed, I will never know. To be honest with you.
Is it lack of faith in him? Is it lack of trust in him? I don't know what it is about Ben McAdoo, but remember a few weeks ago when Victor Cruz had to have a private meeting with him to talk about his involvement in the offense?
Yeah.
They really need to start using him these final 2 weeks because you got Philadelphia Thursday night, and that is going to be a tough crowd. And the fact that the Eagles are going to be playing spoiler, and they would love nothing more than to stick it to the Giants and help and prevent them from clinching a playoff spot. Because if the Giants win on Thursday, they clinch a spot like Dallas.
And for the record, Victor Cruz has played 13 out of the 14 games this season, and he has a grand total of 29 catches.
That is sad.
This is a guy who once caught. These were his numbers before he wound up getting hurt. 82 for 1,536 yards, 9 touchdowns. That was their last Super Bowl season. Then 86 catches, 1,092 yards, 10 touchdowns. Then 73 catches, 998 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then he wound up getting hurt. In 2014, he only played 6 games, caught 23 passes, and then he missed all of last year because of numerous injuries. Now this year, he's 100% healthy, and all he could get is 29 catches in being targeted 55 times. He used to average about 120 targets a year, and so far this year, he's been targeted 55 times. I mean, granted, Odell Beckham Jr. is getting the majority of the catches, but if he's not available, you have to get somebody else involved, and Victor Cruz is getting the shaft.
I know. Despite the fact Odell made an insane one-handed touchdown catch, which he's done a lot in his career.
He's a freak of human nature, straight up.
You could throw a grapefruit at this guy, and he would still catch it from distance.
I think you can throw a medicine ball in his direction, and he can catch it with one hand. That's how great he is.
My favorite to this day will still be the Sunday night game against Dallas, where he caught the one-handed catch against Brennan Carr, the cornerback, and it didn't touch the ground. He was able to get it right here, just within a few feet of it, get it touching the ground, and bring it in for the touchdown. That is one of the most memorable highlights. I've been to auctions where they sell Odell Beckham autographed items with that very picture, an image. And remember, LeBron James even tweeted that very night how insane that catch was. Now we go from, as you like to say, from the sublime to the ridiculous, the New York Jets.
Well, sublime for the Dolphins because not only are they over 500 for the first time in who knows how long, they're probably 2 wins away. And when you think about it, all they have to do is take care of their own business. They've got 2 games left in their season. If they can win these last 2 games, they should be a playoff team, although they might need a little help along the way. And who would have thought that the Dolphins would be where they are right now? It's a testament to how great of a job Adam Gase has done as the head coach. That's number one. Number two, they've been able to overcome a few of their deficiencies, like, for one, Ryan Tannehill playing so up and down the way he has this season. And except for the 3 weeks that Jay Ajayi went crazy, he has barely been heard from. But this season has been strictly about the defense and about the core of receivers that the Dolphins have had this year. And also, how about the game that Matt Moore, the career backup, had against the Jets just the other night? 4 touchdowns and at least 400 yards in passes.
0 picks.
And
Zero
that's more important. No turnovers.
As opposed to Bryce Petty. And not only Bryce Petty had a turnover, but he also got severely smashed up by Cameron Wake and Ndamukong Suh, where Fitzpatrick had to come in. And, of course, what does Fitz do at the very end? Throws an interception in the end zone. Just to cap off the perfect pièce de résistance to the crappy season that is the 2016 New York Jets. They lose 34-13. They've given up, in the last 2 home games, 74 combined points to their opponents.
Well, whereas we saw how
75, sorry.
Where we have seen how subliminal their offense is, we've also seen how subliminal the defense has been the last couple of games, and it has been really, really ugly to watch.
Ugly doesn't even begin to cover it. It's a travesty.
Well, with that being said, have you ever wondered what you could wish for as a Jet fan?
Actually, I was saying to this earlier, they don't even need to see Santa. They need to see the Wizard of Oz. All right, they need to give some brains to the head to Todd Bowles. They need to give some courage to Mike McCagnon. And they need to give a heart to that entire locker room.
Well, it's funny that you mention that because we're going to bring something really quickly into the show. Since it's Christmas time, we are going to unveil a Christmas wish list for all of our New York teams.
Mets need a bullpen. The Yankees basically need some more. They need not aging players anymore. They need to get a little younger.
The Mets definitely need back end of the bullpen help. And I think it wouldn't hurt them to maybe get themselves a little power at catcher because, to be quite honest with you, Travis d'Arnaud is not doing it for me. I mean, you could talk all you want about the injuries, but even when he was healthy, he was not spectacular or overwhelming at all. So what should the Mets get for Christmas? Back end of the bullpen help, some power at the plate, and I think you could argue maybe it's time for them to get a little bit of youth at third base because David Wright has become so soft and so broken down physically. I'm not sure how much longer the Mets can really count on him.
As for the Knicks, I would say Joakim Noah needs to rediscover how to play basketball again like he did in Chicago because it's really it's atrocious to watch him on the court. For the Nets,
it's funny that you mentioned the part about the Jets needing a brain and a heart. I think the Knicks boss, one Ebenezer Scrooge himself, James Dolan, he definitely needs a brain. He definitely needs a heart, and he definitely needs to get himself a lot of courage as well because he's been a little reticent to deal with the media. I mean, granted, he's never been a great public speaker, but
they have the worst media policy of any team. He doesn't want.
They have the worst media policy in sports. But as far as what the Knicks should get for Christmas, in addition to Joakim Noah rediscovering his lost game, they need bench help. They need a defensive stopper. And I think they might need themselves a really good shooting guard because, quite frankly, Courtney Lee and his 5 to 8 points per game is not getting it done. And Joakim Noah is on the hook for another 2 or 3 years after this season. So unless he rediscovers his game, all bets are off.
All right.
As far as the Nets, what should they get for Christmas? I can tell you this.
Yes,
they need some veteran leadership to teach some of the younger players on that team a thing or two about how to go around in the league because they've got a lot of young players on that roster right now. And maybe they should get themselves another point guard because Jeremy Lin just can't seem to keep himself healthy all of a sudden.
And what about in hockey? The Rangers honestly don't need that much. I think they got everything they need together.
I can tell you what they need. A power play scorer because their power play is really, really leaving a lot to be desired right now.
Maybe some enforcer help. Now thinking about not too much, but enough where they can intimidate some of the teams. Mm-hmm. But other than that,
as for the Islanders, I think they would need a third major scorer to complement John Tavares and Anders Lee. Anders Lee is their leading goal scorer right now, and he's got 10 goals. John Tavares has played almost half the season, and he's only stuck on 9 goals this season.
What's happened to Kyle Okposo this year, too? That's
Kyle Okposo, who is taking his game up to Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
And also, here's something else that the Islanders need. I think the Islanders need more stability at goaltender because Yaroslav Halak is barely playing, and the guy that they had yesterday, the guy that they had yesterday tending goal for the Islanders when they got blown out by the Ottawa Senators, a game that I wound up attending for the first time. It was my first Islander game.
6-2.
Got blitzed. Actually, he gave up 4 goals. The other 2 were empty netters, so it wasn't totally his fault. And while they're at it, maybe they should get themselves some penalty killers as well, because they have not necessarily been doing a great job on the kill. As for the Devils, what should the Devils get for Christmas?
A backup goaltender that can give Corey Schneider a break. Mm-hmm. How about they really need a backup in the worst way, and they need some other offensive scores. And Taylor Hall has to be the guy that came into the league when he was with Edmonton. Mm-hmm. I think talk about rediscovering hockey again, and they need another a Zach Parisi, on this team. They need to have somebody like that again.
As far as our football teams, as well as the Giants have played in the last 10 weeks, they're not without their problems. The Giants' Christmas wish has to include
scoring.
Lots of scoring. Specifically, a tight end who can not only block, but make himself wide open and catch the ball. Someone like a Jason Witten, or in his heyday, Tony Gonzalez. That's number 1. They need a running game. They need guys. I would say that they would need a little bit of youth at linebacker.
I think, who would be good on this team? Jimmy Graham would be an awesome addition to the Giants. Honestly, I wish the Giants would have made a play for him when the Saints were in their, cap issues and all that. I think the Giants missed an opportunity to get him.
As for the Jets, they can get away with having a lot on their Christmas wish list.
Oh.
Specifically, a decision to be made at quarterback, a tight end, secondary receivers, because right now, something tells me that there's a strong possibility Brandon Marshall could be on the chopping block. And the same thing goes for the guy that used to play for the Patriots and for the Broncos. Unfortunately, his name escapes me. They need youth on the offensive line. They need a running game. Quite frankly, they need an entire reconstruction of that offense. I think they need some help on the defensive line as well. Leonard Williams has proven to be a really good player, but he needs help in the worst way. Either Muhammad Wilkerson or maybe Sheldon Richardson may have to go. I think they need youth at linebacker. They need a real defensive stopper in the secondary.
This is what the Jets should do. Trade one of them to the Cleveland Browns for their number 1 pick, because they need help plugging that defense line. They've had one of the worst rushing offenses in the last 2 years, and maybe one of those guys, I would say Wilkerson, could maybe improve the Browns in that regard. Also, you make a deal to give up 2 first-rounders for the next 2.
That's really asking a lot.
I know.
That's asking a lot.
But honestly, they'll get... With the number 1 pick, maybe they can get themselves like a transformer, like a Myles Garrett, who is the number 1 overall player. You get him along with Leonard Williams. You build for that future. And possibly, if the Redskins can't come up with a way to get a deal with Kirk Cousins, maybe the Jets can swim in and try and make a deal, a 2, maybe 3-year contract. But
how would Jet fans like that?
It would have to be at a reasonable price. If McCagnon can be the magician that he was the first year he came into the league, maybe things could turn around. Who knows? As for, that's really it. How about last night? WWE had its final pay-per-view of the season, Roadblock, end of the line. Rusev defeated Big Cass via countout in the pre-show, which is honestly insulting to these 2 gentlemen. They're better than this. The WWE Tag Team titles, well, no more New Day.
It's about time that they did away with that ludicrous gimmick.
Well, they're not the champions, but they had the most historic run, 483 days.
Just over a year as champion.
That is the longest record. in history. You know who now holds the title? Sheamus and Cesaro.
Wow.
I think that was a good idea that WWE came up with to make them a tag team.
Amazing.
They don't like each other. They can't stand each other. But, man, can they fight well together. They have such a great chemistry, it's not even funny. And then Braun Strowman and Sami Zayn fought each other last night. Here's the stipulation. Sami had to last 10 minutes in the ring with this guy. If you've never seen Braun Strowman, his arm is the size of tree trunks.
Yeah.
He's like a government experiment gone wrong. He is somebody who can crush a grapefruit like this, or a melon like this. He's scary.
Yeah.
And Sami Zayn wanted to take on the big friend, well, not unfriendly giant. And he had to last 10 minutes. That's what Mick Foley said. If you last 10 minutes, you win.
Yep.
He lasted 10 minutes. There's going to be a fight. And then Seth Rollins beats Chris Jericho via the, what's the move that Triple H has? The pedigree. And then the triple threat match for the Cruiserweight Championship, which I'm happy WWE brought back the Cruiserweight division.
Yeah.
And, of course, Rich Swann won, beating the Brian Kendrick, one of the best veterans I've ever seen in the ring.
Yeah.
And T.J. Perkins, Filipino-born, actually born in Los Angeles, but of Filipino descent. Great wrestler he is. But who comes at the end? Neville. And he's now a heel.
Wow.
And he's going to join the Cruiserweight division.
That's good.
I think it's really great for the Cruiserweight division. And you know what WWE just is doing now? They're doing a 16-person UK Championship tournament.
Interesting. So they might have somebody represent WWE and win the UK title?
Well, they're going to try and bring up the UK brand WWE in the United Kingdom from all corners. Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England. So
Sounds good.
16 of the best from all different parts of the UK. Next month, January 14th and the 15th, WWE Network exclusive. Watch it. Then the second ever female Iron Man match.
Yeah.
30 minutes. Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair. These ladies, this was the last match in their epic rivalry, and it came down. It was 2 falls to 1 Sasha Banks, but she was in a bit of a bind with the figure 8, which is the figure 4 with the bridge that Charlotte Flair does. And with just 2 seconds left, Sasha taps out, unfortunately, and then Sasha ended up tapping out in overtime, and she lost 3 falls to 2. So Charlotte is now the 4-time women's champion.
There you go.
That's about 12 off her dad's reign. And for the Universal Championship, Roman Reigns defeats Kevin Owens via disqualification. However, because it was a championship match, the title cannot change hands with a DQ. So Kevin Owens retains the title. And guess what happened? Chris Jericho came into the ring. He's pissed off at Kevin Owens, his so-called buddy. He gives Owens the code breaker.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Roman Reigns wins the match for some. Actually, Kevin Owens wins the match because of disqualification. And then we find out that Chris Jericho it was all orchestrated.
Wow.
It was just a stupid plan. Then at the end of the match, Seth Rollins comes in, and him and Roman beat the crap out of Chris and Kevin and put him through tables.
Good.
Reminiscent of the old Shield. I think there's a reunion.
I always did say that I missed their Shield days. They really worked well together.
And Dean Ambrose is on SmackDown. You never know. You know, the next pay-per-view is coming up, Royal Rumble, and already we know 2 of the entrants, Goldberg and Brock Lesnar.
Yep.
That's going to be
really interesting.
And how about the first bit of college football, the bowl games, the Gildan New Mexico Bowl? New Mexico Lobos beat the Roadrunners of Texas San Antonio 23-20. It was a really good day for Richard McQuarrie, a pair of short touchdown runs, and the first ever career victory for Bob Davie, formerly of Notre Dame days.
Yeah, his very first win in a bowl game. Bob Davie, of course, used to coach at Notre Dame, I think, for about 5 years, got unceremoniously dumped, and wound up making his way into tumbleweed country and has done a reasonable job over in tumbleweed country.
I'm happy for them. And you know what, for the Roadrunners, their first bowl game in their 6-year history, that's just outstanding in and of itself.
For them to have made it this far really speaks a lot to how far the program has come.
And how about the Aztecs winning the Las Vegas Bowl, beating the Cougars of Houston 34-10? Donnell Pumphrey, now the all-time rushing leader in NCAA history, over 6,405 yards.
Not only that, but Houston took such a tumble to end the season that they're really going to have to lick their wounds to start off the offseason.
Greg Ward picked off 4 times in this game. Embarrassing. How about the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl? The Appalachian State Mountaineers beat the Toledo Rockets 31-20 on the Michael Rubino game-winning field goal.
And also, Arkansas State won the Cure Bowl against Central Florida.
31-13.
And then there was the New Orleans Bowl, which saw Southern Mississippi beat Louisiana Lafayette in a game that was basically a home-away-from-home game for the Ragin' Cajuns. This was the game where Nick Mullins wound up being Southern Miss's all-time leading passer, almost 12,000 yards for his career, which means he's got more passing yards in Southern Miss history than Brett Favre.
Which is saying something right there. 2 touchdowns in this game and 346 yards alone. And today in Miami, at the Marlins ballpark was the Miami Beach Bowl, and the Tulsa Golden Hurricane kicked the crap out of the Central Michigan Chippewas 55-10. This was a butt kicking of epic proportions. Not many people, of course, as you could see at the game, but every time somebody scored a touchdown, that thing in center field, the dolphin that keeps going. And I've been there a few times. It's not a bad stadium. I've been there for several Marlins games. Believe me, I just wish that the place was actually full and all that, but it's not.
Yeah, and they only seat about 30,000 people, yet they couldn't even fill it to that capacity.
And they're hosting the All-Star game, I believe, either this year or 2018 they're hosting.
I think it might be this year coming up, 2017.
Which is really, so they really need to do something to really get people wanting to attract people to the stadium. It's in Calle Ocho, in Little Havana, and it's on the side of the old Orange Bowl. And tomorrow, of course, you got the Boca Raton Bowl coming up.
Yeah, and that's going to be played at the campus of Florida Atlantic.
And then I believe there's several other bowl games, including the Hawaii Bowl that's taking place this Saturday, Christmas Eve. And there's several bowl games coming up in the weeks ahead. This is always, I know, it's fun for some people. For others, it's
only for the participating schools and their fans. But for others, they're just looking forward to the national championship playoffs that are going to be taking place on New Year's Eve.
I know, which of course we got Alabama versus Washington, and we got Clemson, Ohio State. It's going to be some fun football. Basically, there's not many breaks between football between now and January, if you think about it, too.
Yep. Let's see. After today, there's going to be another bowl game tomorrow, another bowl game on Wednesday, another bowl game on Thursday.
3 on Friday.
1 on Christmas Eve. And then next week, that's when the bowls really, really start to take effect.
Yeah, it's like every day it's either 3 or 4 bowl games during next week because, we're getting towards the end of the year. And a lot of these schools, and the whole thing is Minnesota right now. We don't even know if they're playing in the national funding bowl with everything that they're...
They're already boycotting the game because 10 of their players got suspended. We still don't know what the situation is going to be there, whether they're going to cancel the game altogether or if they're going to get another opponent.
I just feel bad for Washington State, who worked so hard to get to this place and now may not be able to play because of what's going on with the opposing team.
Yep.
As for some of the other sports, what's going on?
Well, with about a minute and a half left, the Rangers beat the Devils last night. Big win for the Rangers, come from behind style. They won it in a shootout. The Islanders were terrible playing at home against the Senators. And the Knicks butchered what could have been a promising Western road trip by losing the last 3 games to the Suns, Warriors, and Nuggets. And the Nets are still a joke because they lost to the Sixers, of all people.
And St. John's got ripped apart yesterday in the holiday. Actually, this past
in the holiday festival at the Garden by Penn State,
which by 20 points they lost 90-70 something. It was just really embarrassing to say the least. Now they're 5-7, I believe, on the year, or 3, which is just.
Well, they've got 10 freshmen and sophomores. They're still learning the ways of the college game. Now, with about 30 seconds left, once again, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, and we hope to see all of you again in 2017. So for everyone here, for Rob And everyone else on the other side of the glass, I'm Jamie.
I'm Eric.
Happy holidays, everyone. We hope to see you next year.
Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas 2017. Cannot wait, folks. Love you all.